connected with the show, I'm not connected with the theatre, I just love doing these post-show Q&As. And especially when I have enjoyed a play as much as I have this one, having had my own little experiences within the Labour Party, and I imagine many of you have too. So, I want to get to know you guys in the audience, first of all, also for the benefit of those on the panel. First of all, actually, how many of you are on social media? Anyone on social media? Okay, for those, please do feel free to put your phones on, keep them on silent, take photos, videos, whatever, help. Careful of that. Yeah.
Sorry.
Stephen, can we raise the house lights a little?
Yes. Yeah, feel free to take photos, videos, and share. If you're on Twitter, please use hashtag triggered and trigger the play on any of the platforms. If you are on Twitter, be sure to follow and big up Emma in particular.
Don't follow me on Twitter, I'm a nightmare.
She's not. Follow her. And also the White Bear Theatre, if you tag those. If you also want to mention me or tag me in anything, then I will retweet as well. And if you look on my account, I've pinned a tweet. Several of the other, 3 of the other actors are also on, what? Okay. Are also on Twitter, and they are in a pinned tweet on my account. So big them up if they say something interesting, which I'm sure they will. Okay, audience, who here are members of the Labour Party? Okay, quite a few. Oh, and also, I'll answer them on the stage. Who's any members of the Labour Party on the stage? Okay, very good.
Yeah, we really didn't talk about that much in the rehearsal.
I'm not a member for political reasons, which I'll explain.
Has anyone in the room, stage or off stage, run for office? Has anyone ever run for office?
I mean, I was a paper candidate once.
Okay, we've got some very knowledgeable people. Any members of Momentum here? Progress. Okay. Fine. Okay, well, we're going to check your biscuit choices later. Okay, does anyone already know they've got a question they want to ask? Okay, so this is where I say, please don't be shy, because I'll get the ball rolling, and I can just talk to them for as long as we have, which isn't too long. But at the end, what invariably happens is I say, no, we must wind up, and then suddenly all the hands go up, and then you go, leave and feel annoyed with me. So it's much more interesting if you get involved. And just ask it. Please put your hand up before. Oh, you've already got one. Okay, so great. Here's our first question. Very clean. So the rest of you think of some good questions. And I want to start also slightly out of whack. I would normally start with Emma, but I know that on the stage we have somebody who has a pressing engagement, Catherine, who might have to leave us early. So we're very sad about that, Catherine. Oh, sorry, I haven't introduced everyone. Emma Burnell, the writer and director, and the cast, save your applause to the end. And the cast, Michael Palmer, Antonia Beamish, Catherine Adams, and Carrie Cohen. Now. And Catherine, I think you might have to leave us. And you've got something wonderfully important to go to.
Yeah, unfortunately, the last feature film I was in had its premiere today. So I've got to nip off to the after party to that.
What's the film? Can we go?
It's it's in UK cinema release as of today, and it's 3-Day Millionaire, and it's a comedy heist film with my scene partner for most of it, Cole Meany in it, and a lot of excellent cast.
What Catherine's saying is I won't be able to afford her next time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, and please pass on our regards to Cole. We like him.
She would do it for the love of it.
Yeah. Okay, so Emma, let me then turn to you. Emma, in the press release, and as many of the people in the room will know, you have been working in Westminster for over 20 years. You've seen every side of Labour politics going. Can you tell us a little bit, in brief, about your political journey and why you wanted to capture it in this, your second stage play?
So I was in the local paper in Chislehurst, aged 3 weeks old, as Labour's newest member, because my dad was the local organiser there and was really good at press releases, which now seems like something that everybody could do, but in the 70s was like really revolutionary. And I've been brought up in that very political frame. In fact, this play is dedicated to my dad, who is just Mr. Grassroots Organiser guy. He never really got involved in the factions. His faction is people who can do their leaflets on time. And I have my love of politics from him. And we would always talk about politics. I had to do a tote round when I was 13, which for those of us who might remember is a thing called London Labour Lotteries, where I went to sell bingo tickets to fund the Labour Party back in the 80s. And I've always had that passion. And after a very odd career start doing 4 years of telesales, which is why the play sold out, frankly, because I'm shameless, I got an internship at the Fabian Society in 2002. And then I applied for a job as an event manager there, and they offered it to someone else. But she wouldn't do it for the terrible money, and I would. So I then got my first time working for the Fabians. My lovely colleagues are here from the Fabians tonight. My third time around with Fabs. So thank you so much for coming. But that was it. That was my start, and I've been working in and around. And what I do is political communications, and what I always say that I translate wonk to human. Essentially, I make much cleverer people, more understandable to people like me.
And I think that comes across so well in this play, because although we have a lot of political beings in the audience here tonight, it's very understandable for some that might not know about the policy and the machinations of party politics. I think it's really clear. And was that one of the inspirations for you, that you wanted to show this side of politics to people that are not familiar with politics?
The play came about because there was a blog post that was kicking around in my head that I never wrote for years, called The 4 People You Meet in the Labour Party. And what I wanted to show was the human side, the real kind of interesting, ordinary people who do give their effort and their time and their energy, who do go out canvassing, even though it feels completely pointless, who do deliver leaflets and stand on picket lines. And I really wanted to write a play about politics. I do a lot of reviewing, and I go and see a lot of political theatre, and some of it's fantastic. Some of it, they're just bad guys. And that's just not interesting me. Actually, everyone in this play is not a bad person. They all disagree with each other throughout. But I just wanted to make it clear that actually most people get involved in politics, and not just in the Labour Party. I'm sure Tories are really nice. But yeah, they get involved in politics for all the right reasons, and I think that's so rarely represented. So that's what I was really hoping to get across. And what was really helpful to me is that I think we had a range of interest in politics in the cast. And so if they didn't get something, it was my fault as the writer, not their fault for being stupid about politics. So that was a really helpful process when they would kind of go, what does that mean? Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay.
So let's bring in those 4 representations of the 4 people in the Labour Party. So I think, Kerry, were you the only one who raised your hand as a Labour Party member?
Yes.
Okay. So, in which case, I'm going to start with Catherine, because she might need to leave, but I want each of you to answer what attracted you to the play, and was the political aspect part of that attraction, or daunting, and how did you grapple with that?
Not political at all, I'm afraid. So it wasn't that part. It was the fact that, it's a paid piece, for starters. Which is rare in theatre anyway. But
the annoying thing about being a socialist is I have to pay the actors.
Yeah. But it was the writing. It's brilliantly written. It was very natural and easy to understand. And I found it easy to learn as well, because it flowed very well. It was very naturalistic with the dialogue. And it was the human aspect. It was the fact that it wasn't a political piece, it was a human piece that happened to be set in a political world.
But do you feel that you now have learned more about politics, having got involved in this, and maybe interested in doing more? No, I'm not.
Like a membership form.
If you can email it to me, my people look at it for you. No, definitely still on hopefully on the acting side of things. I'm not looking to go into politics now. I understand more about what my character says with regards to the politics of it, but it's it's not something that I'm overly interested in, to be honest. I'm interested in people, though.
So Catherine is the normal voter.
Yeah, that's helpful to have that range.
Completely.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so Karen, I'm going to save you to last because you are the Labour Party member. Let's hear from Antonia. You alluded to kind of an interesting political story.
Well, it was the politics that attracted me to it, but also the writing, because I think it's very well written. I wrote a film script in 1996, having never written a film script before, about a female president of the United States of America, because after 7 years of living there, I realised that it was never going to happen. And then I came back here inadvertently the day after Tony Blair became the Prime Minister for the first time, and I was like, oh, that's lucky, you know. And then I had a child at some point in the early millennium, 2000s, and you know, I was sort of trying to find books to read to her, and they were just all about princesses, so I wrote a series of children's books that haven't been published yet about a female president of a nondescript country. And a friend of mine pointed out to me, she said, but you've always been writing about this, and I hadn't even joined the two together. And then obviously in 2016, that was when Hillary Clinton ran against not Obama.
We don't need to mention the person's name.
Sorry.
Let's not mention the
And
name.
I was like, oh my God, that's when I remembered my film. I was like, that was 20 years ago. And then as an offshoot of the children's stories that I wrote, picture books, I started delivering political workshops in primary schools for children, because I feel really, the whole language of politics is like this language that you don't learn, that they don't teach you at school. You only learn it if you do politics A-level, which is offered at some schools, but not all schools. All this play. But so in school you don't learn it, and that's why I have not joined the Labour Party, because I don't want to just deliver these workshops in state schools. I mean, I do, but I need to deliver them in private schools as well. And I know that if they look me up, I mean, if they look me up on Facebook, forget it, they ain't going to employ me. But if they know that I'm a member of the Labour Party, they're just going to think that I'm peddling, you know, Labour tropes, which I'm not much. Basically, the workshops we do, it's the hardest and most satisfying thing we do. I kind of create a Lord of the Flies situation, but you know, I introduce all sort of the political. I thought I knew a lot about politics, and then I read this play, and I was like, oh my God, I just, you know, it took me a long time to understand the play.
Well,
but anyway, so yeah, that's what attracted me.
I do want to come back to that, because I as a kind of political junkie myself, inexpert political junkie, I get so frustrated sometimes with people, friends of mine, who really are not interested in politics at all. And they seem to have such low opinions of all politicians. You know, they do that. All politicians, all MPs are the same. And I wonder. I feel that often it's just because of ignorance. They don't really understand.
Well, my point was that my father was a Tory, my mother was a very socialist, left winger, and.
What an interesting home life that must have been.
Well, they divorced, obviously. But he is, he's since Brexit, he's no longer a Tory, so that's a good thing. But I remember when Maggie Thatcher became the Prime Minister, so a female Prime Minister was a possibility. But it wasn't until I started running a corner shop on the street where I live that I realised that anyone could get involved in politics, and that you didn't have to have studied PPE at Cambridge or Oxford. And that's why I deliver these workshops in schools. And at the end of the day, when the kids, the 11-year-old kids go, I can be a politician, because when I was running that shop, I just got involved in local politics inadvertently. And then I realised, and then while doing this play, I was thinking, maybe my calling has been wrong, and maybe I need to change my life.
Interesting.
Try and become an MP. But it's
I'll be your speechwriter.
Yeah, but I won't win, will I? No, you'll be my speechwriter.
Which is your constituency? We'll get into
that. I've spent a few days with my MP lately.
Okay.
What's my constituency? West Norwood and Dulwich. Helen Hayes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Sorry. So, Michael, what about you? Political, and was that part of the attraction?
Not especially. I mean, I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't even know what triggering meant. So that was the first conversation we had, which we had an audition online. In fact, it was a sort of a post-COVID sort of back in a because we started this project a few months ago. It's very rare, it's quite rare for me anyway at least, to be in a play where the author is still basically alive.
Basically
To some degree.
And a woman, or just alive?
Just alive is sufficient. Because often you're trying to work out you're trying to be true to the author, you're trying to the subject matter less. What you think, this is a brand new project, it's a new play. It's about subject I have an interest in politics in the fact that it affects my life, but I don't live and breathe it. But to actually be in the room with somebody who does, and for you, I'm just saying this, but you've been, every question I've had is been answered unbelievably succinctly and brilliantly. You yourself are an education, and it's. Well, so not only working with an author, and obviously you directed it too, but you're so knowledgeable, and so thanks very much.
Oh, I think we've got another Emma fan on the stage.
You have.
Very good. And Kerry, as a Labour Party member, do you recognise a lot of what you...
Well, yes, but I think that the first question you asked was what attracted you to the play, and I had this play been set in another organisation, which it could have been, people have to reapply for their jobs the whole time. I mean, it's iniquitous. I was attracted to the play by the characters as much as the political thing. I mean, obviously it's easier as an actor when you can agree with the ethos of the play, because sometimes you're asked to play parts and you can't relate to that character. So it was a bonus that the play aligned with a lot of my political thinking, but politics, I'm a member of the Labour Party. It's a bit like saying, do you eat breakfast? Well, yeah, I do, and I remember for our family, but it's not something I live and breathe. I was, my name's Carrie Cohen, and I come from a Jewish background, and when there was all this brouhaha, I think is the word, people said to me, how can you stay in the Labour Party? And I thought, hold on a minute, it's my party. No one forces me out. I will stay and fight for within, and then that's with other things, I'm not a quitter. And I think with the Labour Party, which is something I've been trying to talk to Catherine about, I suppose I actually believe in about 80% of their policies, which is bloody hard.
That's not bad.
There's probably about, 10% of the Tories that I agree with. Nothing of the Lib Dems, they can all go. Because I'll never forgive them for the SDLP, whatever. But, so it is important. And I have been in Labour Party meetings, but I've been in Bridge Club meetings that have had their factions, I've anybody here part of a residents' association? Oh, come on.
That's it's human. It's just the way that we are as people, and I think that we sometimes in politics we think we're so different.
Yes, yeah.
But it's not at all.
It is, and the thing, we say, I've always had this joke, and if you look on my Facebook or whatever it is, I've always had this joke, Carrie Cohen available as actress, willing to play bag lady or judge. And I think that would be wonderful. I'd love to play an old bag lady. In fact, next year I'm supposed to be playing old fishwife in a short film. And then Emma came up with the script, and I thought, oh my God, June's just like a judge. Yes! And I can wear a suit and a jacket and comb my hair, and I don't have to look batty. So, well, a bit batty. So, yeah, what attracts you to, I think, as actors, and then this is a serious point, because it really makes me laugh when you look at the Oscar awards and they say, what attracted you to this part. Basically, as actors, I think at any one time, 84% of us are out of work.
Yeah.
And at any, one time, it's a bit like, all the people that earn all the money, something like 78% of actors get 94% of all the work. You just have to watch the telly. And I love them dearly, and Olivia Colman is wonderful. But couldn't I please have one of those roles? So when actors are asked what attracted you to the play, if it's inoffensive and it's paid, and that's not denigrating Emma's work, because I've known Emma for a while, and I think it's a wonderful play. I do think, and every time I'm never bored listening to it. It's fascinating, and it relates to so many aspects of life, and it really, really does deserve extending, a bigger theatre, although this is a beautiful theatre, and I think it's a play that will speak to people for a long, long while.
But what a difference 3 years makes in terms of the perspective on this play.
When I first
What a
wrote
difference
that
6
last
months
line, it wasn't a joke.
Well, exactly. And you first did the play 2 prime ministers ago, right?
Yeah.
At the Lion and Unicorn, and
Now we know how it ended. with
Yeah.
for Boris Johnson. Well,
Yeah.
do we? Let's not count our
I think
chickens.
it's clear that to the audience that it is 2019 that we're in, you know, that's the key thing, that it is slightly historical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says January 2020 in the...
Oh no! It's, well, I think we'll. Well, for those of us
The first
political junkies in the
scene
room, we
is
all remember that
2020 and
2019
the rest
elections.
is 2019.
Sarah, you had a question.
Yeah, just for Emma really. Really enjoyed it, and it's surprisingly moving. Wasn't expecting to find it moving. But there's a word not mentioned in it, which kind of everybody's avoiding at the moment, but Brexit. And it's very interesting that you didn't bring that in at all when that was exactly what was going on in the party at that time.
It was why I didn't do Brexit and I didn't do anti-Semitism.
No.
I wanted to do a play about the Labour Party that was about a moment in the Labour Party. What is fascinating to me now is that if I set this 2 years later, you'd have Antonia making the complete opposite set of arguments and Jim making the complete opposite set of arguments. And that wasn't my intention when I wrote it. It was very much kind of, this is what I believe the left believes about mandatory reselection. I worked really hard, I spoke to lots of people. We had, in the first run, we had a wonderful moment where John Landsman, who, for those who don't know, set up Momentum, which is the Jeremy Corbyn supporting organisation, was sat next to Luke Akehurst, which set up Labour to Win, which is the anti-Momentum. And they both really enjoyed it and both thought it made their arguments well.
Yeah.
And they had a photo taken together.
They did. We've got a photo of the two of them doing the race. It's actually wonderful. But so what I really wanted to do was not take a side, but explore the different arguments. And if I'd gone down an avenue with Brexit or with the I don't think I could have done a both sides thing on anti-Semitism. I could probably just about manage it on Brexit, but I mean, it would be so obvious which way I lean. Whereas I don't know really which way I lean on mandatory reselection. Every time I think I've made my mind up, I think, oh, Kate Hoey, or yeah. So I really just wanted, again, to bring it back to the people. And I think if it was Brexit or one of the more emotive things that people were fighting about, I don't think they would have got on as well as they did. And the point was that you could see that Jim and Sally were mates. You could see that Jim and Sally had a certain amount of time for each other. You could see that June just thought they were all bloody idiots. And that was what I wanted to do, and that's why I didn't bring any of that particular type of character to it.
And in a similar vein, I thought it was really interesting that you didn't actually dwell too much on Corbyn as a person, or the inevitable Tony Blair. Was he evil? Was he genius? Whatever. It's just it is
I did
about
keep
what's happening.
asking in the last run, when Jeremy was going to come and see him, and Emma was like, "He's not coming. He's not coming." And I was like, "Oh."
Again, I think, and this is probably me bringing my perspective far too much. I get very cross about the personalisation of politics. I remember being at a conference a few years ago, Labour Party conference, sorry, we use these weird shorthands in politics all the time. If I'm doing that and you don't know what I'm saying, please tell me. And I had this guy on the right of the party, and he was a bit pissed. And he was saying, look at them, we're singing along to that. Ooh, Jeremy Corbyn, they're bloody cultists, bloody cult. 10 minutes later, I turn around and there he is going, Saint good. And I just thought, do you not see? Do you not see that that's exactly the same? And just this way that it all gets put into Jeremy or Tony and chanting Tony. And I'm just like, no, hang on, there are ideas and that's what matters. It's the difference that we make to people's lives that matters. It's not who gets to wear the top dog hat.
Well, just before I let the gentleman in the back ask a question, I'm looking for hands over here too. Tell me about the singing in the play. Given that you brought up singing, that seems a really important transition, and what they're singing and why. And
So,
For those who might not know, what are the songs?
So the three songs, the Red Flag is the anthem of the Labour Party. It may be set to the tune of O Tannenbaum, the German hymn, but it is, any member of the Labour Party will at least know the chorus.
I think did I see you singing along?
Yeah.
Yeah.
when my family came in, they were all singing along. They had half the audience singing along last night. The Things Can Only Get Better was the campaign anthem for Tony Blair's 1997 landslide victory, and therefore has become very much the anthem of that part of the party. Jim comes on singing the Internationale, which is the International Communist Anthem, in fact. And all of these songs I grew up singing, and in fact, in the 70s when I was born, they used to encourage women in Labour to sing. And I was born to my mother singing the Internationale. But the idea was that there was this clash of ideas, and I wanted to do that in a sort of, we called it the dream sequence. It's the representation of the clash of ideas between them, kind of really simplified and put forward. But the point is, at the end, they all step forward and sing together.
Yeah.
And that actually the Labour Party, however often we enjoy fighting amongst ourselves, we are actually one party.
It is true. And Cass, did you enjoy the sing-song?
Me?
All of you.
I was terrified.
Yes. You have the hardest bit.
The thing is that I can't sing, as you might have noticed. So the only thing I could do was to sing it how June would sing it. And once I actually, because I sung it but never listened to the words. Did you do that? So when the bit I adore, and I think it's almost my favourite bit in it, is saying when cowards flinch and traitors sneer. And I hate the cowards, and I hate the... So the only way I could do it, and I have no idea how it works. I just take a deep breath and come on and do it, and think, well, sometimes I hit the right notes, and sometimes I don't.
It doesn't matter.
But it was...
I did tell them none of them are supposed to, and they all actually do keep the tune perfectly well. We have a wonderful guy who came in to help us with do a day of singing workshop with us. Who's my in my first play, he was my musical partner. We wrote songs together. We're writing the next play that I'm doing together. But you were not there to be singers, you were there to represent the songs, and you did that brilliantly.
I guess that's the balance, isn't it? Because if you come on and sort of launch into, I'm a bit of a singer. There's no reason that Jim is a singer, and so there's a temptation, particularly on those that be, you're like, no, he wouldn't sing like that. So you kind of turn, but you got to, it's big enough to make the point, for the dramatic point, but not distract, so that is he showing his voice off. So it's getting that balance right, I think.
Very good. And then Catherine, you've got the easiest bit coming in right at the end.
I have to out sing these guys then.
Oh,
They're quite loud.
Why didn't Safia have a song? Did you think of one?
Yeah. Because there are little subtle
she's a
hints
no
about
mom.
that Safia's going to win, and Safia has no politics, so she's just the Labour Party.
Right. I was expecting something apolitical.
Could I ask you?
Yes, hold on just a second. You'll be after this, Jim. Your question, sir.
Yeah, you've got a nice thread there where you've got the trigger is the sort of is triggered by the left, and then you have the contest, and the right wing candidate wins and then loses the election.
Yeah.
Is that prophetic?
No, it's so interesting. Everybody has a different response to this. I think based on their own. And I've every night somebody has given me their theory of the play, and I'm like, yeah, that's absolutely what I was doing. Yeah. And it's always different. But I think there is definitely. I mean, for me, I sit on what's called euphemistically the soft left, which is the world's worst factional name in the history of the world. But I've always tried, and I have friends across the party and across the spectrum. I think for me, we were always going to lose the seat at the end, because how else is it going to end? But I think there was an element of that, you think you're so clever, coming along with your fresh blood and your PR, but actually actually it was kind of inevitable.
So Sally, you don't think would have won the election?
I don't think so.
And does Hollingdeane in the next election become Labour again?
Hollingdeane is a completely fictional place.
Yes, okay.
And in no way based on a small southeast university town. So we shall see.
Okay.
We shall see.
Your question.
Yes, sorry, Emma, I wanted to ask you about, it didn't so much seem to me a play about ideas, it seemed to me to be a play about processes, the process behind the party.
Process matters.
Process matters, yeah. And I wondered what you were trying to do with, because you were talking about characterisation and bringing the characters out again. So were you trying to explore the characters by focusing on process, or were you trying to expose process by the characters? I'm not sure what it was.
That's a good question. The truth is, I was trying to be honest, and I don't think people do just sit there and go, well, actually, the reason that we want to renationalise the railways is etc., etc. in the pub. So the only real chance that felt real to me dramatically was to do that in the speeches. And I wanted it, and Jim's speech is my favourite. Jim is to my left, but he's so idealistic and romantic, and I love him. I agree. I'm like Sally. I agree with everything he says. I just don't think he gets elected. So that was like me really unleashing my inner lefty in that speech. But then I also thought, and in fact, we've had some MPs in, and one of the things they've said is that they love Sally's speech because it's the bit they never get to say. This is what it's really like being an MP, and this is what you really have to do, and this is the hard grind of it. So it was about the people more than the ideas or the process. It was about the people. But I think that line that Jim has, process matters, it shapes us, it shapes our thinking, is important because we are a party, the Labour Party, that gets bogged down in process and starts to worship process over the human interaction.
Can I ask another
Yes,
question?
yes.
So,
Can I possibly interject? I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to dash off.
Oh,
Sorry.
Catherine,
Sure. Have a wonderful time.
Have a great time, Catherine.
If you need to stay. If you need to stay, just
They're all pitching for their next job with Catherine. So they're all
just
there.
there.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Yes.
It was just because, and I wondered whether it was a historical piece, and I know you wrote it before that, but I'm a member of the Labour Party, and the Labour Party I even see now frustrates me like mad.
That's what it's there for.
And I was looking at this group of people, and I was going, if the Labour Party are still these people like this, and this is probably true of the Troyes as well, and everything, it's just chaos. I just looked at them and I went, this is just chaos.
All parties are chaos. They absolutely are. They're a chaotic coalition.
Well, no, I'm not saying.
But
it is chaos.
Do you think
parties
it's about the Labour Party?
That's
isn't it?
really interesting what you're saying, and it's like you in the short conversation I had with Emma on Zoom when I first, I'd read the script before I got in, we got in touch, and in the short conversation with her, because I have a quite idealised idea about the Labour Party and where I'm leaning, etc. I know where I lean, etc. I had the short conversation with her, and I learned more in that short conversation than in my whole life. And I was like, oh my God, suddenly this kind of vision that I have of the Labour Party as the saviour of the world was just kind of destroyed, not meaning that I'm going to vote for anyone else. But I was like, oh my God, they're just like everyone else, bitching about each other and fighting with each other. And it was really, I hadn't kind of believed that before. I didn't want to believe that before. And I think I'm just really interested in what you're saying, because that is exactly what this play is about. It's about, these people who just can't agree, and that's not going to get us anywhere, is
But
it?
that's not really, I disagree with that. Sorry.
Hold on a second, everyone. I see your hand. Let's just have the
But
people who
very
on the
quickly,
panel want to respond to that.
I want to say that I've been a member of the Labour Party and I've lived in various places. And one of the things I found is when I've moved to a new place, I've gone into a Labour Party meeting, and I've always found enough people there that would be, for want of a better word, friends. I mean, I'm very, very lucky now. I live in Bloomsbury, and my local MP is Keir Starmer. My local Labour Party are absolutely fabulous. I mean, there's, you know, one or two of them, you know, who sort of complain about everything. But on the whole, it is what Emma says, it's a family. And in a family, we all have the batty uncle who gets drunk and embarrasses you at the wedding. But we also always have the auntie we can go to when we're in trouble. So I think it's a bit of a cliche to say, oh, there's so many factions in the Labour Party. I'm just so pleased that I chose them and not the Tory Party after the last few years.
Do you think it is any worse on the left than the right, this factionalism?
I've always said that the left will fight the right if they have to, but they'd much rather fight the left. But no, I don't, because I think that power and what you are doing in any political party is working towards the benefit of one person individually and society generally. And every single one of us will have a completely different idea as to what that means. Even if we joined up to be a collective and say we are part of the same gang, whether that be Labour or whether that be our groups within Labour, we will still violently disagree over things. And then someone calls an election, and we get up and we do 12 hours out in the wind and the rain, and we make it work, and we work for an MP. In 2017, my local marginal seat was Ilford North, where Wes Streeting was running for the first time. And I saw members of, Wes is still quite clearly on the right of the party, I saw Momentum members flood the streets to get him elected, and it was fantastic. And it just really, really brought it home to me as to what it's all about. And I'm walking around with a young woman with one of those Corbyn t-shirts, Run DMC logo. And she said to me, oh God, we bumped into Wes, and he was really grateful for us working the streets. And she said, do you think he'll mind that I'm wearing a Corbyn t-shirt? I said, love, you're working hard for free to get him elected. He won't care if you're wearing a bin bag.
Very good. Question then.
I was just going to sort of ask a similar question to the one that we've just been discussing, which is that, do you think that a version of this play about the Conservatives would work? Because
I think Netflix would probably buy that one.
I mean, I have no experience of this whatsoever, but it is a big trope about the Labour Party in particular. It's a big factional party. It doesn't strike me as overly likely that the Tories are one big happy family.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone could look at the last few years and think that.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was sort of what your pitch for the Tory play would be like.
Harder to sell. Honestly, on the London Fringe, come and see how Tories are really human would be a really hard sell.
Why do you think that would be hard to sell?
Because the London theatre audiences,
They tend to be left wing.
Yeah.
They tend to be
Yeah.
left.
That's quite voyeuristic.
I mean, yes, but then I'd have to write it in such a way that all the people were awful, and I don't know how to do that.
But Posh worked very well, didn't it? It was a tremendous hit.
Yeah, but again, I don't think it was about how they were actually quite nice human beings
No,
underneath
they
it all,
weren't.
really, and
It's
that's
a different play.
the different thing, and
Yeah.
that's so a play like this, I think, would be a hard sell, and I think that's a shame in a way, because I have some Tory friends who are, perfectly nice. They're just wrong about stuff.
But they're much more differential to their leadership. I've been to many Tory conferences as a lobbyist, and it's astonishing how the membership see the leadership as this sort of patrician group of people who are. Like,
They used to be. I think that may have been
it may have
changing in the last.
changed
Yeah.
Yes, question.
I'll say something and then a question. With Matt Hancock and I'm a Celeb, I think people are coming around to seeing human sides of politicians. So I think.
Which is exactly
What?
why you did it, which is so annoying.
So I think if we were playing humanisation now, would work.
That's a reasonable point.
But my question is this: like, theatre's all about humans and the stories of humans. What was your, because this play is political, what was your political gain for this play, putting this play on? Although it's about the humans and the human aspects, what do you want people to take away about the Labour Party going away from it? Taking humans out of it, I understand there's humans and their stories and who they are, but what do you want people to think about the Labour Party now from this play?
I mean, to be honest, what I want them to think is people who do all this for the Labour Party, because what you quite often get if you go out canvassing on a Saturday morning is people who think you're there for some personal gain, and you're just not. You're just really, really not. And I think that's an underexplored concept. Everybody thinks people in politics are out for something, out for what they can get, and actually they're not. 99% of them are just not, and that for me is the gain. And yes, I use the vehicle of the Labour Party because I know it, I love it, I care about it, I love it in a way that you can only love something when you know how deeply flawed it is. But I wanted to just really hammer home the point that people in politics are people first.
Can I
With
add
the
something very
canvassers, I
quickly
wish-
here? Because that's not what I thought the play was about at all.
Okay.
I think
I'm telling you, everyone has their own theory.
But to me, this play is a warning because it's set in 2019 and no spoilers, it didn't go very well for the Labour Party. And I think it's very much a warning. Look, if you are going to do all this infighting and do all of this, it is not necessarily going to be for the greater good and the good of the cause. So I find it very, what is the word? Like, it's like a fable, you know. For,
Prophetic.
Yeah, something like that, you know.
The gentleman in the basket. Can I just say, I would love to see a play about as someone who's been on the doorstep many times and frozen my ass off, that people don't realise that we are volunteers, you know, for goodness sakes. Why do people get angry with someone who's going to give up their Saturday and go do this? That's my beef. Yes, here.
So we've had, well, the country has had 12 years of Conservative, Liberal Democrat election wins. I'm somebody who got into politics. I'm Scottish, obviously. I got into politics in a real way in 2014 when we had the referendum. The Labour Party in the referendum, Scottish Labour ripped itself apart.
I know, but given how small Scottish Labour is, I actually know most of them.
Yeah. And then we kind of went into 2016. The Brexit referendum happened. We then had 2019. We had Jeremy Corbyn and anti-Semitism and everything else that came with that. And we're kind of hitting a point where, not to hum, things can only get better. But things do start to seem to be like we have a party that's ready to govern for the first time since I got involved in politics. And do you think this play is something, you say that there's a lot of theories and everyone comes out of it at the same time. Do you think this play should be recommended reading as it is for anyone that wants to take part in the next general election, whether that is a candidate or as a volunteer within the Labour Party, because it gives it gives glimpses of the positive parts of each of the factions and of the way that we work together?
I think this play should be put on the Apollo.
Is the play published, by the way?
The play text is not published. It's a Word document that has
So we'll
changed
get-
several times.
Let's get Matthew in to publish it, and then we'll distribute it to all
No, we
the
want to put
parliamentary
it on.
candidates.
No, we want to put it on. They've got to come and see it. Now, we'll the experts film of it.
But I mean, I really hope that what this play does for anyone who does manage to come and see it, and we've been so grateful. Thank you. You guys have given up your evening. When I was doing my shameless sales pitch, I would often tell people, look, it's only an hour long and it's above a really nice pub. I am aware that people part with their money to come and see this and sit in this theatre and listen to my nonsense. And I'm doing my very, very best to give something worth that money. What its life is beyond that, I'll think about on Sunday. Because for the moment, what I want to do is give audiences the value for money they deserve.
And you are. So I think we do need to wind up in a moment, but I want, you alluded before to your next project. Tell us what that is and when we can look out for it.
Well, I'm working on two things at the moment. This is where they all get interested. I'm sorry, one of them is a one-woman show, which is me. I'm working on a piece called Venom, which is going to be a piece of cabaret theatre. I'm going to sing at people. How I'm going to charge people for that, I do not know. Again, I'm working with the guy who co-wrote the songs for my first play. The songs were definitely the best part of the first play.
That's not true, I saw it. That's very good.
The first play, I mean, it was a great first play, but it was a very much a first play. What's fascinating is No Cure for Love was set backstage in a music venue, folk festival, a world I know nothing about, and both of those characters were 100% me. And they were the argument I have in my head all the time about love and sex and romance and songs. And this play is a world I know completely, and yet none of these characters are me at all. And in fact, I disagree with all of them at some point. And I found that a really interesting process. But anyway, Chris, who is my writing partner, and I are working on a show called Venom, which is a one-woman show loosely based on the Medusa story, looking at a combination of the demonisation of older women and the radicalisation of young men. So that's what's coming up. And then the other thing that I'm working on, completely bizarrely, is a Hollywood film.
Oh my!
Turns out that the thing that you really need to do to get ahead in this business is have 30 years ago have your head of music write an opera that you're in, and then he becomes a Hollywood producer. And then you have a school reunion and he says, let's write a film together, and then we've written a treatment, and it's like being promoted. I mean, and God knows, because he's bad as toast.
What's it called?
Well, the opera we were in was called A Safe Place. It was in 1990, I was 15, and it was loosely based on the story of Love Canal, which is where the town was built over a toxic waste dump. And it's a very odd youth opera, but we did perform it. We reopened the Hackney Empire, we were the first thing there, and we were on the South Bank Centre. So for years, my two truths and lie, and I'm giving this away to my colleagues now, has always been one of my two truths that people didn't know is I've sung opera on the South Bank Centre.
Very good. Oh, I'm sorry, Anthony.
That's all right.
Oh, sorry. Is there, I'm seeing more hands up. See, I knew this was going to happen. Right, okay, wait. Sorry. Just quickly say your question.
No, it's not great. It's an observation, this young man here. We used to have to sit with John Lansman in our meetings.
Okay.
And points of orders a bit all the time, the rule book would be out, and we'd never go home with the business of the evening. Yeah.
Okay, we won't go on about John Lansman. Yeah, but thank you. And your question?
My name's Josh. I'm afraid to say I'm a Lib Dem.
Oh, yay! You are welcome here, comrade.
Me too, and we didn't even get a cook the biscuit.
White wine, please.
Are you a Lib Dem as well, Terry?
Yeah. Former Labour. That's my story. Yeah.
And I found out about this place through Michael Crick, who's doing some really interesting
He's
work
coming
around
tomorrow.
deselection. And while this has been about the Labour Party in a lot of ways, I mean, it's astounding that, I mean, this is the way that we're choosing our MPs, especially in safe seats. It's 250 or so Labour folks or Tory folks, whatever. No, they don't have safe seats.
You always say that, it's not true.
And so I wanted to ask kind of what message do you have through this play about democracy?
That's such a liberal question.
And what change would you want to see?
Oh my God, that's the fun of it. Okay.
I feel like I'm dominating a little bit here.
Well, we need to finish, so let's have quick answers. What's the message for democracy?
I mean, I'm clearly not a massive fan of AB, or despite being on the soft left. I think the truth is, my message about democracy is we need to stop focusing on process. We get completely wedded to the idea that electoral reform in and of itself is going to change everything. And it won't. Policy changes stuff, policy changes lives. Implementing something, building a fucking council house, that changes a life. Making sure a school's not falling down. My primary school flooded every fucking spring because I grew up under Tory government. And that matters. And so democracy, my answer is, I don't care how you do it, just get involved and make a difference.
Get involved, absolutely. Does anyone else have a solution for democracy?
I think it's the best of a very bad thing. When I was working in the Labour Party and I had friends and things, I actually drove a Tory voter to the polling station because I said we chained ourselves to the railings, you will go and vote. She says, but I probably won't vote Labour. I said, that's up to your conscience, but you're not voting. Because I very much feel that we have the right to vote. And I think, with these processes, some of them do work out well, and some of them don't, and it may have been a different result in Hollingdeane, because 2019 was a disaster anyway for so many MPs. I think I actually do agree with the fact that triggering is not such a bad thing if it is done in the right way. And I tend to, even though I'm very much, even probably more soft left than you are, think that what Jim says, if this was a formality, and I mean, we had to do this in Bloomsbury, we had to formally say we weren't going to trigger Keir Starmer, and that's what we did, yes, let's get rid of it, he's already had. So I think, whatever way you choose someone, it's not going to be perfect. And we have the right to vote, and what depresses me more than anything, we were so excited about the council elections. Some of the wards were 27% turnout. More people vote on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here than they do in a general election. I mean, what does this say about? I don't think amenities fit for purpose for them.
I have quite an extreme response, which I might even be answering the wrong question, but I think that the answer to, because obviously we have to have a democracy, people need to be free, but there also need to be rules. And I think that, it's like in a family, you say to your kid, yeah, okay, you can smoke in the house, etc., if you're over 18 and you empty the dishwasher or whatever. So I truly believe that there should be a wealth cap. There should be a cap on wealth. You can go and make as much money as you want, but when you get to this point, you've got to stop. Because otherwise, it's never going to end. It's never going to end. And, as long as there are people like, I have a friend who went, I went to East Berlin when the wall was still there. And I've been to East Berlin since, I can't believe the wall isn't there. And all this kind of, there's been so much change for the good, for the bad, whatever. I had a friend whose dad was this, interesting guy who, when Russia was no longer communist, he was flying Boeing 747s, the big, massive, huge airplanes, from Russia with no people in them, packed full of cash. And this is the truth of the world that we live in. And as long as that is going on, and people like Putin and Trump and Boris Johnson and are being given air, then it's never going to change. And in 2008, I remember I went to France and I looked back at England. I was like, oh, it's just becoming more and more feudal, the gap between rich and poor, and all Liz Truss and her Singapore Brexit. And I mean, there's a problem right now though, and that problem is Rishi Sunak, and this is my warning to everybody.
Okay. So one word answer.
Because he's saying all the right things. I don't think it's clear cut who's going to win the next election. Sorry.
Well, and on that note, one word answer from Emma, our prophet on the panel. Will Labour win the next election?
If you'd asked me 6 months ago, I said no. They're probably going to be largest party now. I think they are. I think the thing is, not necessarily that Labour are getting everything right, but I said this before, the place to Hollingdeane is one of the best, but the best journalist I've ever met. Massive fan.
Yes, Holly Toynbee is in the room. We all found
it out. Okay. We are not. I think there's a stench of death about the Tories that they can't escape. A thing happens in politics and the wind changes. And I remember it happening in the 90s because I'm very old. And it hasn't felt like that for us since then. But it did feel like that, the other side of that in 2008.
Well, the good thing is she knows much more than me. That's good.
And a note of hope is a good place to end. So thank you all for staying. Thank you for excellent questions and comments, and even the Lib Dem in the room.
I would just like to say one thing. Okay. I mean, wouldn't it be great if there were more Lib Dems in the audience?
Yes,
and Tories?
Yes,
I mean, wouldn't it be great if Tories came to see this play?
That'd be a shorter room. But
no, that's my neighbour, Victoria.
It's sold out.
Is that?
it's sold out. Audience, please join me. Big round at the end and thanking Carrie and Antonia and Michael and Emma Burnell.